I don't care what anyone says, this film slaps, it's hilarious, and I love it. Halloween Resurrection isn't so much a divisive film as it is just a totally hated one. It marks the final film in the Halloween series before we enter the realm of reboots and further retcons, and boy do people not like it. Often considered the worst in the series by a lot of fans, and let me remind you, this is a series that has the borderline unwatchable Halloween 6. Resurrection acted as the immediate sequel to Halloween H20, or Halloween H2O? I'm still not really sure how they want me to say that awful title. Now if you've seen that previous movie, or you've watched yesterday's video, you might be thinking, wait, is Michael Myers not in this one then? How can they make a direct sequel to that film? And the answer they give, my friends, is I personally believe fucking hilarious. Okay, so, bit of a story behind this one. To talk about the development of this film, we have to go back to the end of the last one, because this film's opening was created on that film's set. As I mentioned in my last video, Jamie Lee Curtis only agreed to stay on for the previous movie in the lead role as Laurie Strode under one condition. There had to be no possible sign of a sequel. No teaser, no ambiguity, a closed character arc where she overcomes her trauma, defeats Michael, and that's it. But series producer Mustafa Akkad proved to create a thorn in this plan, as he had a clause written into writers' contracts that stated that legally they cannot kill Michael. Gotta leave him alive for that sequel money, baby. So we're at an impasse. Your star threatens to walk if her character can't have an arc where she defeats her biggest demon, but there's a legally binding contract that makes said demon unkillable by law. So they got Kevin Williamson of Scream fame back in after he created the foundations of the movie to do some script doctoring, and he came up with an ending where everyone was happy. Laurie gets her big moment, stares down her monster, decapitates him with an axe, and walks off into the sunset, never needing to look over her shoulder for the boogeyman again. But hold up, how did they decapitate Michael? Surely that constitutes killing him, right? Well friends, I can barely hold in my delight when I say this. That wasn't Michael. In an intelligence-insulting move planned from very early in Halloween H2O's production, as in literally before filming had started, Resurrection opens with a hideous exposition dump that reveals, get this, Michael Myers was not the man in the mask at the end that Laurie killed. Off-screen, he had injured a paramedic who approached his body before the final moments of the film, crushing his throat so he couldn't tell anyone he wasn't Michael. He then swapped clothes with this paramedic and escaped, while Laurie kidnapped this complete fucking random dude and put him through hell before decapitating him. And I'm sorry, what the fuck? The absolute bullshittery they pulled here, I can't help but respect it. Just think about this for a second. They gave Laurie this empowering close to her arc of overcoming trauma, having her fight and claw her way to a satisfying victory, giving her a big action sequence and a slow, emotionally cathartic ending confronting her violent, murderous brother and finally ending him. Played it off with complete sincerity the whole time, with all the dramatic lighting, acting and music that would accompany such a pivotal sequence, and they knew the whole time this dude wasn't Michael? The audacity, the disrespect, I'm sorry, this is fucking hilarious. Can you imagine if any other major series pulled this? Like, imagine for a second that Empire Strikes Back had the I am your father reveal from Darth Vader to Luke. It played out the exact same way with all the emotional conflict such a revelation would have, and then years later Return of the Jedi releases and started with Palpatine turning to Vader and being like, wait, so you're really that kid's dad? And Vader just went, what? No. Fuck no. I just thought it would be a funny thing to say. That's what Resurrection does here. And this isn't some writing bullshit in after the fact so they could make a sequel. They planned for this. They filmed the first shot of this film of Michael in a paramedic suit the immediate following day after wrapping on H20's principal photography. I can't help but respect this. It's the work of an evil genius. I absolutely cackled at this nonsense, and it gets worse the more you think about it. They didn't foreshadow this at all. I mean, okay, Mr. Not Michael paws at his mask a bit at the end of the film when he's crushed by the van there, but nah, come on! Besides that, they absolutely double and then triple down on the pretense that this paramedic is Michael Myers. The dude attacks Laurie, he flies through a windshield, he does the Michael sit-up, and he's crushed by the weight of a van and is still alive before his decapitation? I'm sorry, is this guy Superman? Because if he isn't Michael, that's the only other explanation I can think of as to why he survives all this shit. Also, fucking Laurie, the last thing she's overcame her biggest fear in a moment of catharsis and pathos, but nah, she's just battered the shit out of some poor random sod and then took his head off with an axe. This is horrendous. I love it. I can kind of see why this is thought of as the worst film in the series. The absolute horseshit they pull here is astounding. I'll bag on Halloween 6 for being an incomprehensible mess till the cows come home, but even I've got to admit it never pulls this level of disrespect with its characters. I mean, yeah, they probably shouldn't have killed the main character of the previous films unceremoniously in the first 20 minutes, but even with that, it still has a bit more respect for its characters and audience. But you know, that's just the opening. That nonsense sort of needed to be done to explain Michael coming back, but now that's out the way, we can do a proper movie now. Jamie Lee Curtis is back again as the original final girl Laurie Strode, and you know, after that last film, she's battle hardened now, she's not afraid anymore. I'm sure we'll get this really cool arc where she uses all she's learned and takes all that progress she's made and takes the fight to Michael. Not as a reluctant, frightened woman, but as a brave and courageous, nope, never mind, she dead. How long did that take? 15 minutes. 15 minutes. She spent her entire role of the film coming off her narrative victory of overcoming trauma and defeating her monster as a murderer confined to a mental institution for 3 years, who did in fact not defeat her monster, is stabbed and dies. And then the monster just kind of wanders away from the main conflict that has in some way been driving 6 of the previous 7 films, and just finds something else to occupy his time with. Now look, I know that sounds awful. I know that sounds like a spit in the face of your own character's narrative. I know it's really bold to alienate your core audience within the movie's opening sequence, but in the film's defense though, they had to kill Laurie this early. I mean, if you spend too much time giving your series main protagonist a fitting narrative send-off, then you won't have time for professional rapper Busta Rhymes to do kung fu on Michael Myers.
So you want to be on Dangertainment? Let's see what you got.
This is spectacular. Is this film a shitpost? I mean, Busta Rhymes is kung fu fighting iconic mass murderer Michael Myers. That's something straight out of early 2000s YouTube sketch comedy. Is this a Halloween film or an episode of MTV's Celebrity Deathmatch? Okay, let's fly through the plot real quick so you can see how ridiculous it all is. So as already mentioned, Laurie killed a dude that wasn't Michael and is in an institution. Michael resurfaces to come kill her, and to the film's credit, she is a lot more ready for him this time round, which does somewhat acknowledge her character growth. Of course, she is immediately then killed, and we jump forward to a year later to meet an entirely different set of characters. Our protagonist this time round is this girl Sarah, a shy and introverted college student whose most intimate friendship is with a young lad she talks to in a chat room who goes by the username Deckard. Sarah, along with a cast of completely insufferable and very of the times early 2000s slasher teens, has been selected from an audition to take part in an internet reality show run by Busta Rhymes. Yes, I know his character name is Freddy, and no, I will not be referring to him as anything but Busta Rhymes. The show is called Dangertainment, and the students are lured in with the promise of a cash prize, and all they have to do is wear cameras that live stream their every move, although admittedly in horrendous grainy potato quality footage that absolutely no one would enjoy watching, while they stay the night at the abandoned childhood home of notorious serial killer Michael Myers. Unbeknownst to the teens, this reality show is a little less real than they imagined, with lots of elements placed in the house to give the performers something shocking to discover and the audience something to enjoy. An obvious on-the-nose commentary, of course, on the unreality of reality television, but one that cannot be taken seriously because 1. This is the most unnuanced examination of an audience's relationship with reality television that literally children were capable of making during the big reality boom of the 2000s. 2. It's completely self-contradictory in the messages it wants you to take away, arguing reality TV is trashy, exploitative titillation in one breath, and then finding ways to shoehorn in topless sex scenes within its own narrative in another. And 3. Busta Rhymes. While this is all going on and the film crew goes so far as to have a fake Michael skulk through the set to scare the contestants, the very real Michael Myers has returned home and started killing people. There's a sea of confusion where the real and the fake clash as Michael picks off the teens and crew one by one until only Sarah and Busta Rhymes are left. But luckily for her, Sarah has a secret weapon. Her online bestie Deckard is watching the stream and is able to use his vantage point of being able to see all the cameras to message her and warn her where Michael is, and she is able to escape. But not before Busta Rhymes has a kung fu showdown with Michael and is inexplicably the person to defeat him and save the day. Busta Rhymes is our hero in the end. A hero who calls Michael a motherfucker a lot.
Trick or treat, motherfucker. Fucker. Burn, motherfucker.
And that's pretty much it. The film ends with the news media swarming the scene and interviewing our heroes, which causes Busta Rhymes to go on a hilariously on-the-nose tirade, criticising the media for their sensationalism. Really, movie? You gonna pull that card? You're gonna have this character, this one, the reality TV director who exploited these kids, essentially showing their tits on the internet and then getting them killed to be the sympathetic hero and voice of reason who says enough is enough? Okay, if that's what you want to do. And then after all that, we get a final tease of a presumed dead Michael stirring and revealing his "Don't Kill Me" contract hasn't been breached, setting us up for a sequel that never happened. This film is batshit. It tries to force Michael Myers, a character they only just managed to reinvigorate with a sense of purpose and presence after his image had been dragged through the mud for years, into a weird teen pop culture inspired narrative that sees him getting wrapped into the events of an online reality show. It screams of a committee of old dudes doing market research into what's cool. What are kids into these days? Well, they like the internet, so let's put a bit of that in there, and then let's give the soundtrack some of that rap and hip hop those youngsters love so much. Kids like Jackie Chan too, right? Rush Hour 1 and 2 were just really popular. Let's have some kung fu in there. Get one of those rappers making Bruce Lee noises. That'll get him. You can tell this was assembled in a post-Scream world, as it feels like a film made by people who saw that Scream was popular for how it sort of freshly handled realistic teen stories and characters and felt topical and fresh while doing it, and then took all the wrong lessons from that film's success. This is a factory-made, AI-constructed attempt at the kind of fun teen Scream tone that throws in these completely misguided conceptions of whatever zeitgeisty thing was popular at the time. Just pause yourself for a moment, take a step back, remove yourself from the early Laurie death, the rap soundtrack, the Busta Rhymes kung fu, and what do we have as our central premise? The main thing that's supposed to hold our movie up and act as its foundations. Michael Myers on a reality TV show. This is so dumb, it's insane. Myers, even after you take into account all of his ill-advised films, is not that malleable a character. He's not Jason. He's not someone that was set up on such silly foundations and fluctuating quality that you can insert him into any ridiculous fanfic scenario your heart desires. You couldn't do Michael Myers versus a telekinetic teenager, or Michael Myers turns into a zombie, or Michael Myers goes to space. This is a character who, even with some misguided attempts to make him more supernatural, still exists in every timeline he's been in as the grounded killer who once stalked the quiet streets of Haddonfield that Halloween night in 1978. You can make a film that taps into and comments on the 2000s hot pot of newly brewing internet culture, and you can do it with an established character. A comic book character like Static would totally adapt to that kind of story. A big pop culture legacy character like the Doctor from Doctor Who could maybe do something with this. In the horror world, I could see Ghostface or Jigsaw doing that, but not Michael Myers. You can't just make a cheesy teen horror film about a goofy as hell internet reality show led by Busta Rhymes and organically shoehorn in Michael Myers. That's insane. That is an insane thing to do. But these mad lads did it, and I fucking love that. Now look, this film is bad. It's real bad. It completely misses the mark with its commentary on media and new media, seemingly having no clue what it wants to say about the subject. It treats its established characters with a complete lack of respect, murdering the final girl in the first 15 minutes and having Michael be defeated by jobbing him out to Busta Rhymes' goofy ass kung fu, and the whole thing is corny, ill-conceived, pretty poorly acted, with unlikable and forgettable characters, and just overall is dumb as hell. But I come from the pretty unique position of recently going into this movie mostly blind and being able to know that Halloween 2018 already exists and gives Laurie the proper narrative treatment she deserves. So I can treat this film just like the hilarious little oddity it now is. Had I seen it at the time of release, I'd have no doubt hated it, if not for anything else than its treatment of Laurie alone. It is sinful how much they undermine her character and arc. This is one of those rare films where its decisions are so bad, it somehow actively makes the preceding material that it follows worse. Halloween H20 is a worse film because of this movie's existence. Because as much as you can take it as standalone, and you absolutely should, it's a different film, different crew, different directors, different writers, and an overall different goal in mind, you cannot escape this weird metatextual knowledge that scratches that little irritating part of your brain and goes, that's not Michael in that mask, whenever you watch that film's conclusion. And knowing that just takes away from any catharsis that sequence could have. I might have considered this worse than Halloween 6 had I been one of the people who had to sit with it as the concluding chapter to those characters for a whole 16 years. But I didn't have to do that. I saw Halloween 2018, loved it, and that was my Laurie and my Michael. That was my continuation of those characters. And only after I already had that bookmarked in the happy places of my heart did I then watch Resurrection for the first time this year and get to just enjoy the silly nonsense ride of it all. It's a joyously bad movie, infinitely more watchable for me than a bunch of the sequels I consider to be far better films. Like, it's probably not too controversial to say I like this more than 5 or 6. It might raise a couple of eyebrows, but I imagine there's more than a few people out there who feel the same. But honestly, I prefer it to 4 too. And I know that's probably going to make me a Halloween pariah, but I can't help it. It's just so shit, it becomes more entertaining than 4's far superior, but also deeply serious efforts. Yeah, 4 might be a more sincere and genuine effort. It might be more respectful to the characters, be better written, better acted, and just generally a better film in every conceivable way. But I can't watch Busta Rhymes do Kung Fu in 4, can I? So, 1-0 Resurrection. I highly recommend this film, and for the complete opposite reasons as to why I recommend the first film. I'm maybe being overly kind to it, not just because I didn't have to deal with it being the ending for 16 years, but also because I watched or rewatched all of the Halloween films back to back over a single weekend for these videos, and after sitting through several hours of seriousness, several of which were from the dreaded Thorn trilogy, this completely unexpected misfire caught me totally off guard, and added a great deal of levity that helped bring some new energy and life into the proceedings. Make no mistake, I will reiterate, it is bad with a capital B, but it's the good kind of bad if you ask me. And with that, holy shit, we've just come to the end of our penultimate video of this marathon. It's kind of only dawning on me we're nearly at the end of this thing. This month has felt like it was never gonna end. It's been a lot, and in all that time I've forgotten to acknowledge that we're getting close to the end here. I mean, as of me saying this, really close to the end. We have only one more film to go. Now the next film in the Halloween series is the reboots, but we're not covering them. Original continuities only, I'm afraid. If I did all the reboots, I'd run out of days, so the next film to link back to the original Halloween movie is Halloween 2018. But I'm not doing a video on that either, because I've already done 2 videos on it, and I think that's probably enough. So that this slasher season doesn't feel like it's missing a title though, if you're enjoying following these franchises and how they develop, I'll link to both videos I made on the 2018 film in the description below. I recommend primarily you watch the one from last year's Wholesome Halloween. It's the newer one of the two and has a presentation that'll be more familiar, and I'll be putting that one in the Wholesome Halloween 2 playlist to play straight after this video. Now with that explanation out of the way so we can make sure nobody misses a vid and feels out of order with these things, that leaves only one Halloween film left to do. So join me tomorrow for the final episode of this year's show with one last movie, where for the first time in Wholesome Halloween history, we'll be covering a brand new film, released as recently as this very month, and that's still selling tickets at your local cinema. And that is Halloween Kills. If you don't want to miss that one, then be sure to subscribe to my OnlyDans at the red button below and hit the bell for that all-important notification. If you've enjoyed this video, then let me know with a like or a comment, and of course, if you're really enjoying the show, then you can support the channel by becoming a patron and get access to some cool exclusives for your trouble at the Patreon link in the description. And that's all from me for today. So as always, I've been Dan Drambles, you're watching Wholesome Halloween 2 Slasher Season, and I will see you again one last time tomorrow.